Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. This is the end of 2020. You know what happened this year? Video games from PlayStation. It's true. I know it's hard to believe, but we're here to talk about what the fuck happened. What did good old Sony do? Yeah, my compatriot over here is ripping the proper gear. I, on the other hand, I'm wearing a Ferris Bueller's Day Off shirt, which is not related. I did not think we were doing this video today, to be honest. But but let's talk about it.
For the sake of the audience, much like the Nintendo video, I would like to clarify and say that we are reviewing Sony's 2020 and what they did this year.
I feel like I put out enough context clues in my intro to make it obvious. And also, they clicked on this video because of fucking title in the thumbnail. There's information out there. I'm not that dense.
But I was gonna call this the best 3DS games.
So we gotta tell them.
Yeah, we gotta tell them in the video.
Yeah, okay.
But no, we're done fucking, pardon my language, lummoxing about. We're gonna get we're gonna get down to business.
Okay.
I actually don't know what lummoxing about means. If that's an offensive, can you look it up? Let's find out if that's actually offensive. Because if I actually need to pardon my language, I will.
Flummoxing is a word.
Flummoxing. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Flummoxing. To flummox is to perplex. Greatly bewilder.
Well, Ratchet is a Lombax.
It's true. He's not a flummox.
And there's also a Lorax.
It's true.
And there's also a lot of things in PlayStation's 2020 that are worth discussing. So, Tucker, should we begin where every good year begins with the release of Media Molecule's Dreams?
Every good year, yeah.
Now, I think that phrase inadvertently sets up my thesis for this video. Sony's 2020 was fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, they've had good years.
Yes.
The last run of years of the PlayStation 4's life is one of the greatest ending life cycles to a fucking console, in my opinion.
Yeah, this year was so packed full of not only excellent high fidelity exclusives, but really great presentations. Also, I think that they had some troubles with their messaging. I think that a big slip up in terms of messaging was the whole "we believe in generations" thing, which we'll get into. But on the whole, this was just such a strong year. Not that it got off to a great start with Dreams. Did you play Dreams at all?
Fucking course not. No. I mean, I don't mean that in any. No, I know you haven't. That's the thing. I don't usually buy a lot of games at launch. And especially with new IPs, it takes a lot for me to want to get into them on the ground floor. And I don't have anything against Dreams. I mean, as it's been sort of in the zeitgeist and then out of the zeitgeist. I mean, that game's not talked about that much anymore. I think it's a quality product with a surprising amount of detail, but it was not the fucking thing that the idea of Dreams turned out to be a lot more impactful than the actual final product of it.
Yeah, the problem with Dreams is that it's a really hard marketing challenge.
Yeah.
But the game itself is quite extraordinary, what you can create. I bought it because somebody, and this is not, I'm not telling a tale that's incorrect here. Okay,
this is telling a falsity.
This is the truth of the matter. I bought Dreams because somebody made a tech demo for a Donkey Kong 3D platformer, and I played it, and it's legitimately great. What you can accomplish in Dreams is honestly staggering.
Yeah.
But the way that the game was rolled out just didn't feel right. Because if you remember, it was actually available last year in like an early access type of form, but it was kind of unlimited. You could kind of just buy it. I didn't buy it until the full release this year. And this is far from a new thought. This is a game that ought to be a benefit for being a PS Plus subscriber or something like that, because getting people in the door here, I think is the only challenge, because the game itself, the tools that are here are really, really compelling. And so it's an enigmatic release in Sony's run of games, but it's an important one, and it's one that just has contextual problems that stop it from being the success it probably should be.
Yeah.
Because this is not an intuitive set of tools. I could never begin to make something in Dreams.
Yeah. I can't even make a Mario Maker level.
I can make a fucking hot Mario Maker level, let me tell you something. But Dreams is so far out of my depth, not even my fucking water wings could keep me afloat down there.
I would do heinous things for an image of you in a little fucking skimpy speedo with water wings, sitting in a kiddie pool. That would do wonders for my mental health.
That's what I'm afraid of.
You don't want to give me too much power. You got to keep me handicapped in some way.
Absolutely. But Tucker, do you want to keep going down the road of games, or do you want to talk about messaging, marketing, presentations? Where do you want to go? I want you, even though I have the PlayStation shirt, I want you to take us on the next step of the journey.
Sure. I think we should just go with the marketing, get that out of the way, and then apply that discussion to the games that we're going to be inadvertently and that's not the word I was looking for.
It's absolutely
inevitably discussion. Yes.
Inadvertently. God damn it. So Sony's messaging, I think, was a little bit strange. I think that the state of play is a good format that's just not quite hitting exactly right.
Yeah.
But I think that their big headlining PS5 shows were all so good.
They were fucking phenomenal, especially in retrospect. I mean, I had a decent time watching most of them. We have one live reaction, I think, to the one where they announced the price. I'm not really sure you refer to that one. But
that was the September showcase.
Sure. Yeah. But the initial PS5 sort of games showcase is fucking wild, dude. There's so many big games in that show. I mean, I remember watching it and not being like particularly engaged by a few of them. You know, they have the fucking not Forza, but Gran Turismo section. They've got the fucking Resident Evil, and I'm not a huge Resident Evil guy section. So like a few of the games, my brain turned off, so it broke the pacing in the moment. But looking back, a Resident Evil 8 is a fucking gigantic drop. And they announced, was Sackboy there? No, I think that might have been the more recent one. They got Miles, they got Horizon, they got I don't know, but regardless, those big presentations were absolutely fucking fantastic.
By the way, whoever called it Resident Evil Village and then you could put 8 in Roman numerals in there deserves a kiss directly on the mouth, because that is fucking brilliant marketing.
Well, you know, that's exactly what they did with 7 as well. They did evil, that person did VII, and then they faded in the Resident Evil.
Well, then they should get a kiss on the mouth too. Kisses all around.
Probably the same person. Let's be real.
Except for the person that made the person giving the giraffe a blowjob logo for Resident Evil 6. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No. Well, I know the logo for Resident Evil 6. Whatever. That's not a good reference here.
We'll do some Googling later. But the biggest point, I think, is that talking about Sony's marketing all comes back to the idea of games. And I think that above anyone else, Sony's year has been dictated by the games. Mm-hmm. We talked about Nintendo's 2020 card in the corner.
Yep.
And a lot of our discussion there was about the missteps they're making, things like that. And Sony did make some missteps in terms of communication. Backwards compatibility through the Mark Cerny Power Hour was a bit of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they
that's right. I mean, I honestly thought what I fucking heard in the wind was that it was going to be completely backwards compatible to PS1.
Yeah.
Which, god damn it, if I would have one of those on my fucking shelf right now, no matter how much it costs, if it went that far. But I mean, it's reasonable if it didn't. That's not a criticism of PS5. But
yeah. But they did make missteps, and the fact that they withheld PS5 details for as long as they did, was definitely frustrating too. But Sony has just had this philosophy since they really stuck it in Microsoft in 2013 that games are what's most important, and games are what they deliver. They said it themselves in one of the shows. They said, we're going to let the games speak for themselves, and they did. And they spoke and kept talking and are still talking, because the number of exclusives that came out this year is absolutely staggering. And I think I'm ready to transition to games a little bit, if you are, because then I think we should also talk about the PS5 itself when we get there. But I think let's just move sequentially in terms of the exclusives.
If you can remember the proper order of this.
I got it all here because I kind of bought them all in the order that they released.
Oh.
So the one that I didn't play till later but made a big splash back in March was Persona 5 Royal.
Yep.
And personally, that's a game that has sucked me in, and then it spit me back out after 15 hours. But the fact that a JRPG that for as stylish as it is on a systems level is as straightforward JRPG as P5R is, the fact that it compelled me was really special. And I think that for the people that really liked it, the people consider this one of, if not the best games of the year.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a strong release from Sony early on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had very, very little interest in it. I played and finished the original Persona 5 in October or November of 2019. So I was already late to the Persona 5 bandwagon, and some people are fucking drag racing outside. Why does this always happen to me? But I think at the time we didn't know when a P5 or people were calling it Crimson at the time. They didn't know that when that was coming out. So I was just like, fine, I'll just play it. I wish I had fucking waited, because while I did play 90 hours of Persona 5, I don't think it's the flawless game that other people do. But I do think that a lot of my issues might have been better handled in the our remake, re-release, whatever. Fucking Atlas does whatever they goddamn want, and people buy it twice. But I'm very glad it exists. I'm glad people got so much enjoyment out of it. It's something that I eventually want to get into, because I'm totally willing to give Persona 5 a second shot, especially through that re-release Visage.
Visage.
Yeah,
Not the word you wanted, but sure.
No, that's a real word.
Well, it's a real word, but a visage is like someone's face. You're thinking of the word enhanced port.
Yeah, it's similar. Whatever. God damn it. I don't know why I try to use big boy words. But I'm going to play it eventually, but I think it's something that requires a good amount of time between my playthroughs for me to sort of refresh, get new perspectives, play more games, and come back to it with something new. But P5R was a big fucking release, and I'm glad so many people liked it.
Now, Tucker, that brings us into the next console exclusive, not from a Sony first party, but also a JRPG, and one of my favorite games of 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which launched in April.
Is that on PC?
No, not yet. The game currently is only on PS4. And then it seems like it has a 1-year exclusivity window, then it's going to come elsewhere.
Okay.
You can fact check it. And
no, I just haven't really.
I will expose my belly button if that's untrue, but I'm almost.
Okay, talk about it while I do my research.
Okay. Not Persona 5. Holy Christ. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a really interesting game because for as much as it calls itself a remake, it is a completely fresh experience. Not only from a gameplay level, but from a narrative perspective. And I think that sowed some seeds of discord inside the larger Final Fantasy and JRPG community, because even one of my good friends I go to school with who really loves Final Fantasy did not like the ending. And that seems to be a pretty common thread. But for someone like myself, coming fresh to this experience, I was enamored with Midgar and the characters, and especially that combat system, which is universally phenomenal. And Square Enix really backed themselves into a corner here, because you can't do what you did here and then half-ass part 2. You know, you have to deliver this level of quality, and this took a long time to do. So it'll be interesting to see.
Really long time.
Yes. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with a remake as a bigger product instead of the singular release. But in the context of just that, I think it is such a special game, and I really loved it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you make a very good point about them sort of shooting themselves in the foot with, honestly, how good their game was, which is weird to say, but the fact that we are getting part 1 of a remake of a game, and then God knows how long it's going to take to get the conclusion to that story. Is something that they set the bar honestly a little too high for themselves, which is again weird to say, but I think that they could have made this a slightly more traditional remake with, of course, the enhanced visuals that changed the combat, all that. But I think this, from my perspective, should have been the complete game at launch. Wait a few years. I know it's been a fucking long time, but release the entire thing rather than split it up. And of course, now that we've seen this, people are fucking on their hands and knees begging for remakes of other Final Fantasy games, especially some of the earlier ones that don't hold up as well as it is. As I've gotten into Final Fantasy VI, people fucking every comment section I go in is, when are we getting the FF7 remake for FF6? And God damn it, I would love that. But it's unfortunately not going to happen for a decade, because they have to finish this one first, and they're working on Final Fantasy 16, and they've got 14 still going. So like, they've got so much under their belt that I think it's hampering their release schedule. But of course, these are high quality products, so you know I'm sure it balances out.
To pull in 16, actually, it's really interesting to see this relationship that Sony is curating with Square Enix again with Final Fantasy, because this is a console exclusive for how long we don't know. It seems like it's going to be a year, but then we also know that 16 is going to be a console exclusive for some period of time also. So it'll be curious to see what happens with the Remake Part 2, and it'd be interesting if Remake Part 2 even follows any more of the narrative that the original Final Fantasy VII has,
Sure.
or if it's going to take that in a completely new direction. But this isn't a Final Fantasy discussion. What it is a little walk to a month called June, which is another game we need to discuss.
Okay.
And that game, of course, is possibly my favorite game of all time. Not Final Fantasy.
Jesus Christ.
The Last of Us Part 2.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Ghost of Tsushima come out first?
No, because Ghost of Tsushima was supposed to come out first. It got delayed to come out later. And then, in the most unfortunate twist of events, Camouflage's Iron Man VR came out specifically between Last of Us and Ghost. And there's like a week and a half between the two. So that was
rip.
The poor Central Planet.
That's some fucking Titanfall 2 levels of poor placement.
That's some fucking Daemon X Machina 1 week before Link's Awakening type placement.
Yeah.
But
there's very little in this year that compares to The Last of Us Part 2, at least from the perspective of backlog banter. And it's the reason I didn't play Ghost of Tsushima. Let's be real, because I didn't need another $60 game when it coming off the shoes of my favorite fucking video game of all time.
I'm not sure what else I really have to say about the game right now.
Card in the corner to our full hour and a half, hour 40 review of the game.
Yes, card in the corner to that terrible video from not in terms of content, but in terms of production value. It's staggering how far we've come in like 6 months in terms of this fucking channel, but it's still worth watching. And we'll talk about this again, as we've talked about it several times at several points when we return to our favorite games of 2020. But I will say, much deserved Game of the Year win.
Oh God, yeah. I was genuinely nervous that the fucking shit eaters, haters, all those fucking people, we're gonna take Last of Us 2 and rip it to shreds enough that the larger industry wouldn't recognize its value. And I'm so glad that it did win the overall Game of the Year, because I do think that it deserves that. And I honestly don't think there's that much that stands up to that. And it's kind of personally satisfying for me to see a game that I love so much get the recognition I think it deserves.
It definitely does. There's a good faith discussion about the quality of Last of Us Part 2 that I think is interesting, but then there's a clearly bad faith discussion about Last of Us Part 2 that I think unfortunately really took out any chance for actual productive discourse about the game, both positive and negative.
Yes.
So it was nice to see the game win Game of the Year. But what I'm also excited about is for the dust to settle a little bit so we can see some more critical content about the game. For instance, while I haven't watched it yet, I've heard that Nakey Jakey's video about Last of Us Part 2 is really excellent.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of discussion is important, but I was glad to see, the affirmation that yes, this game really does have merit. Of course, merit to be discussed, but in a legitimate manner. And of course, I think the game absolutely deserved Game of the Year. So
100%.
That was very cool. But that brings us to Iron Man VR, which I didn't play. Sorry, Iron Man VR.
No, I mean, it certainly came out this year. I'm surprised we even brought it up. I remember seeing that trailer. I'm like, okay, there's certainly potential here. But obviously poor placement, non-existent marketing as far as I know. And just the fact that it was coming out around other stuff. I mean, like, I don't know what else I can say about it.
And the fact that you don't own a PSVR, that was definitely a sticky wicket when it came to you playing Iron Man VR.
Sure.
I do own a PSVR, but I don't know. I didn't really care. It didn't particularly compel me. But what did compel me was Ghost of Tsushima. It's a game that I got at launch and played a little bit of and put down from Metro to Other M, as everybody does.
Yeah, of course. Naturally.
But I returned to it later, a little bit before PS5 launched, and then through the PS5 launch period. By the way, the game is absolutely stunning on PS5. It's one of the games that did get a patch for that console. But on the whole, it's a refinement of what the open world action RPG genre is, but not an advancement of it. And that's kind of what I think. It's a stunningly beautiful game. It's got excellent combat. It's got really interesting quests, and I think it's worth playing at some point. Sucker Punch deserves a lot of credit, especially for Legends, the way that they rolled out a
Oh
free
yeah,
and what I've heard robust and excellent multiplayer.
those
But
costumes are really fucking cool. See the
those are
costumes the
really
other day?
cool.
They're real
Yeah,
damn
the themed
cool.
ones,
Oh
they're
yeah,
very cool.
Bloodborne, Horizon, Death Stranding,
God of War was
God
last.
of War, maybe. Yeah, I think
It
there's a
was
couple
those
other
four.
ones.
But I think this is a really special game, and I don't know exactly what the calculus was to put that after Last of Us. My personal theory is that they knew Last of Us was going to be controversial, and they wanted a little bit of a palate cleanser
Mm,
in terms of Ghost, and have
okay.
that be the swan song. And I think as a swan song for the system, it really is an excellent release. I still haven't quite finished it. I
Yeah.
have about another act to go. I'm hoping when things quiet down a little bit in terms of what I'm playing, I might circle around back to that. But it's certainly an impressive game.
Yeah. So my perspective on it is significantly more limited. I probably played the game for about 4 hours, and I think I got distracted by, of course, as people do, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Sure.
Yeah, so I got distracted, and unfortunately, it's the kind of game that I think is difficult for me to sort of get back into. I will likely give it a restart and sort of push through that. Because I do think it's a game that I could greatly enjoy, and I have nothing against it. I think I love the
Yeah.
visual style. I was confused by, but enjoyed the combat as I was playing it. I wasn't particularly hooked by the story at the beginning in the hours that I played, but I was enjoying screwing around in the open world, riding my horse, using the wind, finding the foxes, all of that. I do think it's a game that if I put more time into, I could really enjoy it. It's an unfortunate that it got a little bit one upped for me by other things, because I think it is a game that I could like a lot.
Yeah.
But that's nothing to demerit the game itself.
And then that kind of enters us into the portion of the year that was PS5 speculation and hype, and that's basically what we got until the system actually launched,
Yeah.
and we got the next wave of titles from Sony. But we entered this a little bit of a lull, and that's when I think marketing and hype became more of the discussion. But that takes us pretty much directly into the launch of the PS5, which,
Yeah.
for as impressive as the year prior was, obviously this was the moment that
Yes.
Sony was building to, the moment that fans were building to. What do you think of the way PS5 launched, of what it launched with, of all of that, of that chapter of Sony's 2020?
Um, I think it's one of the strongest launch libraries in Sony history by a fucking country
Yes,
mile. Looking back at how so many of these consoles launch, you're thinking, how did they mess that up so badly? But PlayStation 5 came out with not only a absolutely killer packing game card in the corner to our Astros Playroom review,
excellent.
but two incredibly major first party games, exclusive games, quote unquote, Miles is on PlayStation 4, but as well as access to a lot of very big third-party games
Yeah,
that were released in cross-platform, but were, I think, in almost most cases, some of the best on PS5, and some of them even took advantage of the systems that or the hardware that the system was running on. That was not the proper way to say that, but I am happy with the way it launched. I think that the kerfuffle around some of these games being cross-platform is a little bit strange. I'm of the mindset that they could have pushed them to be exclusive for PS5, and that would have benefited those games and benefited the console. But yeah, I don't think it did any harm.
yeah.
So I played and loved Miles. I played and loved Astro's Playroom, and I'm excited for what's coming next, because I think another great thing is that they have set up a compelling library going forward. And also Sackboy came out and launched. Sackboy's
Yes,
Big Adventure. I totally forgot about that. But we have Rift Apart, we have Forbidden West, and we have God of War Ragnarok
and
on
Returnal.
the and Returnal on the horizon,
Yeah.
just ready to continue the momentum of the PlayStation 5, and I'm very excited for that.
But I think that's all really interesting analysis. And what's cool about the PS5 launch is we come at it from different perspectives, because I got one on launch,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still holding off. You're playing on Tanner's, and you're waiting until some of your issues are addressed, and you can fucking buy one
Yeah.
before you hop on. Um, I was really happy with the launch. As someone being inside it became pretty clear that the amount of actually PS5 only software, or even directly PS5 enhanced software, was pretty limited, and still
Yeah.
is. Um, because while October, November were really big months for games, a lot of that is just PS4 content being played on PS5.
Yeah.
Which is exciting and compelling, and those games do get inherent boosts. But in terms of purely exclusive content, we're lacking it a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see next year what Sony sticks to in terms of generational content, because do you believe in generations or don't you? I'm willing to give you a little bit of leeway on the launch window, but as we get into Ragnarok and we get into other games, it'll be curious to see, what is going to be PS5 only.
Yeah.
And my hunch is probably not much.
Yeah, I agree.
But we can talk about that when those things come to pass in 2021. But purely on the basis of content, I think there was so much to play at launch that it was really special.
Yes.
At the same time, while Tanner got a PS5 that was assembled by, I don't know, a horse, I got a PS5 that was properly assembled. And so from a hardware level, I really love the type of kit that we're working with. I think that the DualSense is an excellent controller. And I think that in the year of our Lord 2020, Sony came as close to sticking the landing for the launch of the consoles they could have.
Yep.
The supply constraint, pre-order disaster, all of that, unfortunately, I think was partially to be expected in a year when manufacturing was tougher. They could have handled that messaging better. But I think on the whole, again, with in a year where games speak the loudest, the PS5 spoketh. Even if I'm not a Demon's Souls From Software guy, there's a lot of great stuff there. And that kind of brings us to today. And Sony is, now ratcheting, pun intended, retroactively ratcheting up for 2021 with Returnal and Ratchet, Horizon, God of War, and we're not even in 2021 yet. So that's already compelling. So how are you feeling about the fortunes of one Jeff Sony moving into 2021?
Well, honestly, I think that it kind of was answered with my earlier point about how strong the future lineup is, in a way that we don't see a lot of console launches come with. Usually you're stuck with, whether this is the PS4, the Xbox One, or the 3DS, where you get the console and you're like, well, what the fuck am I going to be playing in a year?
Yeah.
You don't have that issue with the PS5, and I think that is a fantastic thing. I would not have it any other way. But yeah, what were we saying?
Now here's the big question. It's big boy hours now. Do you foresee yourself picking up a PS5 of your own in the coming year?
There are two things that factor into this.
Yes.
Less likely for me to get one because I now live in a house year round with Tanner Dykstra, who owns a PlayStation 5. There's very little reason for us to have two fucking stupidly large video game consoles sitting next to each other next to TV. But he didn't get one with a disc drive, and I'm really fucking jonesing for my next gen upgrades for like you said, Ghost of Tsushima, probably a patch for Last of Us 2 coming out that takes advantage of the hardware. Games like Cyberpunk, which we have digitally, but it is obviously taking advantage of the hardware more extensively than I would say than almost any cross-generational game at the moment. Even going back to something like Control, games that I want to replay, I want to play them on that stronger hardware to get the best experiences that I have, and I can't do that because his thing doesn't have a fucking little ass crack for me to stick my discs into. So I might get my own, and I think the thing that would push me to do that is God of War Ragnarok, because I'm such a fan of the original. I want to get that at launch, and I want to own that game. I don't want it digitally, so I might have to get my own for later next year, but that also means that I'm coming in a year late. So that's something to factor in.
See, if you weren't a pervert that bought physical games, you wouldn't have this problem. But
I enjoy being. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. That would have been too clippable. That would have been too clippable. I'm not giving you guys that fucking pleasure.
I also have the digital only PS5 in for my playstyle. That's absolutely fucking aces. But it means I have to keep my PS4 around to play Kingdom Hearts 3.
Do you own that physically?
I do own that physically. I bought the special edition, in fact.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that one time.
Yeah, even though I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 2 or most of the Kingdom Hearts games, or any of them to completion. But I think on that note, I'm very excited for next year, and I'm hopeful that this is not the entire lineup.
Yeah.
Because for as excellent as this lineup is, the thought that we could have even more is really, really exciting. And I believe also Gran Turismo is in that somewhere, but I don't give a fuck at all, to be honest.
About
Sorry,
what? About Gran
Polyphony
Turismo?
Digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Polyphony Digital.
Is that the
But
developer team? I never heard that name before.
No, that's the name of my penguin in the background. He's excited about the game.
Your penguin is called Polyphony Digital.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you.
No, that's the fucking name of the developer that's made Gran Turismo for like 20 years.
That's exactly what I fucking thought.
But I think, unless you have any final thoughts, Sony won 2020, and that's about where I want to leave it.
All the fucking way.
Yes.
The last thing I kind of want to touch on, because I don't know where this really would go otherwise, is just sort of a recap of the things I played on my PlayStation throughout the course of the year.
Sure.
I use backlog a lot. No, fuck, wait, I spelled this wrong. So I have actually a surprisingly short list of games that I played on my PlayStation. I think my sudden resurgence in interest of retro games and covering a lot of games that are not available on the platform sort of took me away from playing on my PlayStation for honestly a significant portion of the year. But I did still play a lot of good stuff on here. I obviously completed Last of Us 2, completed Miles Morales, I completed Astro's Playroom. I played a good amount of Bloodborne recently, which is fun to go back to. I played a lot of Bugsnax, but then I ended up leaving, so I do want to finish that when I get back to Lincoln. I beat Resident Evil 2 at the beginning of the year, alongside Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I platinumed. I think
Game of the Year 2019.
One of the first games that I played. I'm not responding to that. I also platinumed Until Dawn, which I don't know if you have any experience with that game, but
I have not played it.
Certainly an interesting game. Glad I played that. I the last few played a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima. I beat Gravity Rush. I played most of Avengers, card in the corner, and then I played some Cyberpunk. So that's sort of my recap of the games that I was able to play throughout the course of the year on my PlayStation 4 and Tanner's PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, because I don't use backlog, because I can barely keep up with my fucking Twitter feed. It was a year really dictated by those exclusives, and that's not typically what it is for me. Usually I'll hop into. Usually you get one or two really big PlayStation exclusives I'm compelled by a year that I'll play, but I was playing a ton of them. I was getting into JRPGs, as all sorts of things, and of course going back to evergreen games that I play a lot of. As my Zoom freeze?
No.
Victor freeze?
Nope.
French freeze?
What the fuck does that mean?
Dip them in ketchup.
Oh, French freeze! God damn it!
Oh, you had to be there. But no, it was a year full of rich content, I think, on the whole. I just hope this momentum continues, and we'll find out very soon if it does.
Yeah.
But Tucker, unless you have anything else you want to say, I think I'm going to wrap it up right here.
Nope, I'm good.
Then
Hit me with that outro. Oh, is that it? Are we done?
Oh, I can't end the recording on that because you're.
Oh, that's right. I thought you were.
I had a panic moment because I looked down to hit end recording and there's a start recording button.
I
was like, oh no.
No, I did record the whole thing.
All right. Well, yeah, if you want an outro, fucking fine. I guess I can give you one. Follow our Twitter, it's in the description, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You've watched the YouTube video before, you know what to do. Holy crow.
Were you holding that in?
I was. It was a very good point. I'll have to do a couple a little snippety snappy in this video, but that's fine. I think that's really all.
You don't want to see people to see you fucking dying away like Emperor Snoke.
Emperor Snoke? You mean Supreme Leader Snoke?
Yeah, I don't know. All the same to me.
Of course they are. You fucking Rise of Skywalker fan.